boy. That's my favorite part of the whole game. Is where he's just like, good boy. He doesn't even
You
say
did that.
boy.
You did that really well.
It's because I know how it's spelled. It's not spelled boy like
Uh
boy. It's spelled boa like boah.
huh.
Like boy, good boy.
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 Good boy.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Good Games Podcast. My name is James.
And I'm Leo.
Howdy, partner.
Good boy.
Is that the response to howdy, partner?
Oh, Mister.
What?
Howdy, Mister.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Today we're out in the Wild West, I guess, because we're talking about Rockstar's Red Dead Redemption 2.
Game of the year.
Whoa, Game of the Year? What happened to Spider-Man? You were all about Spider-Man earlier.
I was all about Spider-Man. And then
You've turned coat on Spider-Man?
I gotta say that Spider-Man had me going for my personal, as we discussed. There's so many games of the years, but for me personally, Spider-Man was slated to be game of the year. But
Right.
then shortly after Spider-Man's release,
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, and
Uh-huh.
I have turned tails on it. I'm gonna say Red Dead Redemption 2 is now game of the year for Leo Dress.
You know we have Super Smash Brothers next month, right?
We might have another game of the year. 3 games of the year.
All right, tell me what's got you so jazzed about Red Dead Redemption 2.
Part of it is actually the history of this game. I actually played the first Red Dead Redemption and beat it.
Okay.
I am a Rockstar Games fan, and this was
Ooh.
roughly 10 years ago or something. So it was like a ridiculous amount, a long time ago. Rockstar Games has kind of ridden the surf of the success of the GTA series for so long that a lot of gamers were like, hey, what happened to Red Dead Redemption? You know, the ending was kind of like a cliffhanger, sort of. So, like, you know, we'd love to, you know, be a part of that world some more. And turns out this whole time, you know, they were working on Red Dead Redemption 2, at least the last several years, and weren't telling anybody. So there's kind of a big hype with that. And then also, man, this game just it hits me in all the right spots. Like a lot of people,
Ooh.
I think, are thinking it's kind of like slow at times, and I think I'm just kind of maybe a slower gamer, so it just resonates with me very well.
Yeah, I played a bit of the first. Now, did you play Red Dead Revolver?
I had played Red Dead Revolver as well. Yes.
Okay. See, I played a bit of Red Dead Redemption, the first one,
Right.
and it just didn't. It didn't tickle my pickle at all. I don't
tickle your pickle.
I don't. It just didn't.
Okay.
My pickle was just definitely untickled.
Now
I don't know. I don't know if that has to do with the setting because like
you're not a Wild West guy.
I'm not a Wild West guy. I'm like
Okay.
I don't know. You know, whatever. It's the
I
Wild
think
West.
I secretly am. I'm like secretly a Western guy, but
yeah, I think maybe you have to be a little bit in order to get into this game.
I think you do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I have not really spent a lot of time with this game so far. Most of my time has been spent watching other people play, watching my wife play, watching streams of other people play. The thing that I've been struck by is, well, first of all, the game looks amazing, and that is going to be our tie-in later in the show. We're going to talk about our top 5 very good-looking games. But the second thing that struck me was like the amount of like all these emergent behavior, like and it seems to happen really often, like even more so than in the GTA games. Like you'll be talking to somebody and then like a wild goat will just come up and ram a person in the middle of your conversation. Or like you'll be talking, somebody will get off their horse and then their horse will kick them in the head or something. Just something ridiculous like that. So I wanted to ask you, what's the craziest story? What's the craziest sequence of events that you've ran into during your time playing this game?
Man, there's so many. Okay, so the story I always tell people is there was a particular mission that had me riding on the top of a train and dueling an old gunslinger basically
Mm-hmm.
for as part of the side quest. And after dueling him on top of the train, which is an epic scene,
Mm-hmm.
I my horse was following me along the train. I jumped back on my horse, but the train kept going, and it headed in a direction that at the time I considered to be going pretty much like off the map. Like I assumed the map ended, so and the train was still moving. So I was kind of curious if I got back on that train, where would it take me? And up until this point, everything in the game was kind of a wild wilderness. You know, there were snowy mountains and grassy plains and you know some desert sort of areas. But when I got back on that train and took it all the way down to the end of the railroad, I was thinking, I wound up in the largest city, I guess, in the game that felt like you were walking into actual like New Orleans,
Mm-hmm.
and all this like, I mean, there was paved streets and tall buildings and industrial, you know, areas with smog and everything. So it was like a completely different game. People were walking
Mm-hmm.
around in like nice, you know, really nice clothes, and I could have sworn that if I saw like an early like automatic car, I would not have been surprised. But then I bumped into a guy sweeping the streets, and he got mad at me, and then I, you know, punched him, maybe a little too
As you
hard,
do, right? Yeah. As you,
right? And
yeah.
I probably killed him. I don't know. I think I just punched him. And then because there's so many people, it's such a
Yeah.
condensed
Oops.
city.
Oops. Yeah.
Like 5 people were witnesses all of a sudden of unarmed assault. So I tried to catch one witness and killed that one. Suddenly I was wanted for murder. And then cops from all over the city, which I've never seen cops before. These were police
Uh-huh.
people in uniform, in blue uniform and little, you know, curved hats, came rushing out, and I slaughtered them all for a good 5 minutes, and then I was wanted like for $2,000, which is pretty high
Right.
in them days. And then I died, and then I went back to the save before I went to that city because that was just nuts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but the fact that that all can happen, you know, I felt like I went from exploration to awe to just murderous rampage, you know, in the span of 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other thing that struck me about this game is like just the different ways you can interact with the NPCs.
Oh
So
yeah.
like you mentioned a second ago that you like somebody just sweeping the streets insulted you.
Yeah.
I like that you have options to you can like insult them back or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and there's like just a ton of dialogue that it has
There is.
seemingly
Yeah.
been written for all of these different like NPCs and interacting with them in different ways.
Right.
That was nuts.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, also the game is like seemingly kind of aware of the situation when you're speaking the lines of dialogue, right? So like, uh, if you like shoot somebody and then like somebody sees you do it, you have a witness and you're chasing down the witness, you can try to stop them and your guy's like no, like you don't understand, I didn't shoot him or whatever. Like the game is aware of what's
Mm-hmm.
going on.
Yeah. The dialogue is not like just some canned, you know, responses that are the same every time. Like
Mm-hmm.
it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was very impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little details like that in this game that just feel they add a certain sense of immersion, or I don't know if it's really immersion or if it's just like it's just
Mm-hmm.
impressive. Those little
Mm-hmm.
kinds of details like that. There's so many things, even like weather, snow, footprints in the snow or sand. Yeah, just yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, that struck me in the opening sequence, just the way the snow behaves and is animated.
Felt so real.
Uh, the game is very graphically impressive, which I feel like is something Rockstar kind of does now. Because at the end of a console generation, because they did this with GTA 5 on the PS3. Like at the very end of the console's life, they like come out with a game and they're like, "Look how crazy we can push the limits of the
Yeah,
hardware on this console! Like this game looks amazing, and like there's a million NPCs, and you know, just really pushing the technology."
yeah. They're kind of like it's kind of hard to say that Red Dead Redemption changed or pushed and made a whole new meaning for what an open world game is. I mean, I don't think it did anything that innovative
Right, right.
necessarily, but it does push in terms of like what you can expect in an open world game as far as just scripted events and NPCs kind of going about their life and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, so we said a lot of good things about it, but let's talk about some things that kind of annoy me.
Okay. Number one.
Number one, that same feature that we talk about in terms of impressive detail, in terms of people reacting to what you do and stuff.
Oh, I'm curious if you're going to bring up what I think you're going to bring up. Yeah.
Yeah. It also kind of bites you in the ass when, let's say, like I'm near the docks with my horse, and there's like 2 crates I'm trying to go by, and then right as I finally squeeze by them, some guy happens to walk in front of my fucking horse and falls over and gets his own head stomped by my hooves. And then I'm wanted for murder all of a sudden, and I'm trying to have a good honor and everything. And before you know it, you're a killer. Or for example, someone will come up to me, hit themselves against my body, get mad and like pull their gun out, so I shoot them in self-defense.
Right.
And then if I happen to loot the body, suddenly I'm wanted. Like
I'm
the worst guy in the world. Like, he's dead. Let me just take his whatever he had. I mean, he just attacked me, So
this game really has the thing with looting bodies, and I've noticed that with a lot of these big procedural emergent system open world games. Like I've seen videos of, I think it was like Just Cause 3, where like if you just like go into a crowded area and like just let the game play itself, right, it will over time, like 5-10 minutes, it'll eventually just devolve into chaos. Like people are just shooting each other, and everything's exploding, and like you as the player, you had no influence on this system. Like the system is just inherently unstable.
It says a lot about AI, right? I mean,
yeah, which I think might be true of Red Dead 2. Some of those systems a little bit chaotic, a little bit unstable.
Yeah, it's like you can definitely tell there's certain rules written into that AI, and they don't always apply. That was one thing. The other thing was the horse mechanics are just the way the horse looks and feels, animations and the physics of the horse.
No, the animations are crazy in this game. Yeah,
crazy good. But even little physics like just the horse like climbing up a hill or sliding down a hill, like that kind of stuff, is really cool. The first time I was galloping through a wooded area and there was a branch that I was just like, oh, that I assume I'll clip around that, or like my character's model might just kind of clip through that little bit of brush, and suddenly it knocks me off my horse and almost kills me. Was eye-opening. That was incredible. I was like, wow, that's really neat. But what's not neat about that is when it just randomly seems to occur for no reason. Like I don't know. I feel like there's times where I'm just suddenly off my horse for no reason. I just got on a horse. I pressed X, and there happened to be a lamppost there that just my horse decided to just ram into and maybe send me flying off the horse. Like, I don't know. Sometimes that was a little frustrating.
Yeah. I think this game might have a little bit of the Shenmue problem, as I would describe it, and you can go back and listen to our discussion on Shenmue to understand what my problem is. So and I'll explain it. It's basically, I think Red Dead sometimes it has an obsession with like realism and highly modeled things and like animation, and like
that is true. Yeah,
everything is like super detailed, super like whatever, quote unquote realistic, at the expense of your enjoyment sometimes, right?
Yeah. Searching through cabinets is a great example of that. It reminds me a lot of Shenmue.
How do you mean?
So if you wanted to loot a house, for example, there might be several nightstands or cupboards or whatever. Your character has to, go through each individual drawer. You hold square or whatever to open the drawer, and then you hold. They make it a little easier in Red Dead Redemption, where you just you hold the same button down, and he individually grabs every single item that is lootable and puts it in his pocket. That can be a little cumbersome.
Yeah. That's exactly what I mean. Because I'm thinking of like, even compared to like Grand Theft Auto or even the older Grand Theft Auto games, like just looting a person, for example, is just like you just drive over them or walk over them, right? Because like the
Right.
money is just like floating above their corpse. Like,
Right.
do we need an animation of like, okay, I'm looting this person, I'm reaching in his pocket, I'm
Yeah.
pulling out the wallet, I'm pulling out the cash, I'm putting the like, no, we don't really need all those crazy animations and
We
whatever. Like,
don't.
I get the symbolism of the money just floating over his body and me picking it up. Yeah, I get it. I'm looting him. Like, you don't need to have the insane detailed animation about
Yeah.
that. And
But
I think Red Dead might have gone too far in one direction there.
they a lot of, I've heard that opinion a lot,
Mhm.
that they went a little too far, especially with the looting bodies. Like, you get into a big firefight and it's littered with bodies, and the thought of looting them all, just like, it's like a chore. Like, it's too much, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't mind it, because it's not like I even really need to loot all the, but it gives you this feeling like they almost were trying to have this balance of like the Wild West and how cumbersome things were. And, you wouldn't go around looting all those bodies, because it would take too much time and it should feel like a chore.
Okay.
And because, and my defense of that is, they don't do it to so much of an extent that it's really bad. Because let's say, for example, if you hunt an elk, these elk corpses are enormous. The carcass is huge.
Mm-hmm.
You know how long it would take to skin an elk in real life?
Right.
And this guy does it in about 3.5 seconds. I mean, they're not sticking that true to realism. They're just kind of making a statement, I feel,
Okay. Yeah, that's fair, I guess. Because they even have animations for skinning all these different various animals. Like, it's just the like they didn't need to do that, but they did.
Yeah, right. No, they didn't, and they did, which is why I think it's like a statement that they're making. Like, they want it to feel, I don't know. I think that
adds to the immersion, maybe.
I guess, or just kind of the theme of, the Wild West and that time, things not being easy, and I don't know. It kind of fits. I think if any other game tried to pull that crap, I wouldn't play it. But I feel like because it's this game, I'll allow it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? Any other thoughts on Red Dead? I like I said, I haven't really spent that much time on this game, so I don't have too strong of feelings one way or the other on this one. I've just basically just myself just played the opening section.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we've said most of what needs to be said. I mean, I'll just add that in terms of our tie-in, it is a beautiful game, and it's not just beautiful, and the graphics are good. I mean, they've taken time to add little details, and even so far as just the way the map flows from geographic area, like how different each environment is, and the way light shines through the trees in like the heavily wooded areas, it leads for these like amazing views. Someone took a screenshot that looked exactly like the rolling grassy hills of the Windows XP desktop screen. And it's just phenomenal, just the light coming over just the horizon. It's incredible. It's an experience, man. This game is well developed, it's smooth, and I think if you don't play this game and you're a gamer, what are you doing?
Yeah, I've noticed that with a lot of like big open world games. Like, not only because it's like one thing to create a large environment, right? Like, anyone can just create a large environment, but it's one thing to have your big open world populated with interesting things to do, but also b, interesting things to look at. And Red Dead is definitely that. There's a lot of just I don't know, good looking environment everywhere.
Yeah, and they fill it with fun little encounters too. Along the way, just kind of random things happening. You have great storytelling material. You go to work and talk about different things that have happened just because of the engine that the game is built in.
Yeah,
it's a unique experience.
I almost appreciate that as much as or more than the actual story content in the game. Like, that's the like just the emergent stuff that happens. Like, you feel like you stumble on these things organically. You're like, oh, I found this crazy thing out in the middle of nowhere, and then while I was doing that, like, I was on this other mission and I stumbled down a cliff, and then there was this other crazy thing, and I ran into this, and then a wolf ate me. The end. And then
yeah. Or like I saw two deer like clashing antlers randomly in the wild. Like what? Why is that happening in a game? It's too real, man.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Or the one time this guy I ran into out in the wilderness, he was at a campsite and we just talked for a while, and then he passed out from drinking and fell in the campfire and burned alive. Like that actually happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah, his sleeve his sleeve landed just next to the campfire, enough for the flames to catch his coat sleeve, and then I looted him, because
well, of course, yeah, naturally.
Yeah,
I like that. Like, like any person normally would just like hit their sleeve a bunch and like knock out the fire or whatever. But nope, he's gonna let himself burn alive.
I watched him burn. I wanted to see it happen.
Yeah. It's good. I love games that can generate those types of stories. That's awesome.
I agree.
Red Dead Redemption 2. Keep a lookout for it on our end of the year best games of the year show. That's coming up in.
It is.
That's going to be our final show in December.
Really excited about that one.
We're going to talk about our favorite games of the year that I would assume would be on somebody's top list.
It's going to make
one person's
I'm sure it's going to make
list. All right. So Red Dead 2 is a beautiful looking game. So let's talk about our top 5 beautiful looking games.
All right.
My number 5 good looking game is a game for the Nintendo Wii, which a lot of games on the Nintendo Wii did not look good. So this game really stood out in that it did look good. Actually, it was also a PlayStation 2 and GameCube game, which a lot of those games also don't age well. But this game was chasing a particular art style, and all the mechanics in this game have to do with art and drawing. And anyway, the game I'm describing is Okami. This game is about traditional Japanese mythology, and so you play as Amaterasu, I think is how you pronounce that.
I don't remember.
The Japanese sun god, who is a wolf.
Wolf dude. That's all you have to say. Wolf god.
And he's aided by Isun, which is short for some other crazy Japanese name. But Isun is a painter, and he helps you, Amaterasu, the wolf sun god, by giving you all these different painting skills. So if you're playing the game on the Wii, you point the Wii remote at the screen, and you can draw all these different painting skills that you're learning. But the game's art style is like this traditional Japanese kind of watercolor, but like big. Oh God, I'm sure I'm describing a traditional Japanese art style, but I don't know.
It resembles something that would be like in the Japanese history section of a museum or something.
Okay, here we go. A Japanese ink illustration known as inkwash painting or sumai-e, SUMI-E. Is that how do you pronounce that?
Sumai.
Okay, is that how you say that? Okay, sumai-e. The game just looks, even though it's a game on an older system made on the GameCube, PS2, Wii, whatever. The game, just because it's really artsy looking, and it kind of just looks like one of these watercolor pictures in motion. It's a very nice looking game, and it's also a fun game if you like Zelda type games.
Yeah, I've heard it mentioned it's similar to Zelda in gameplay. I've had it recommended to me before, I think several times, but I've never gotten around to playing it.
It's good. It's Okami. It looks nice.
Nice. Okay, my number 5 is probably a little unorthodox in a list of most pretty looking or beautiful games.
I like unorthodox.
It's a game that I find beautiful for reasons other than the graphics. The game is Minecraft, which we've talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain element of beauty in that game, especially when you're just exploring the randomly generated landscape. there's times where you can, like, it sounds like if you write it this way, it's like, you know, the hiker crested over the grassy hill and viewed a wide, a long flat tundra, and as he looked over the horizon, the little flute like music comes on, like a little synthesizer music,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's you have these moments in Minecraft that really genuinely feel beautiful,
Oh, absolutely.
and yeah, just get this wave of emotion playing a game about breaking blocks. It's so weird, but yeah, that's why I gave it a number 5 slot.
I love that you put Minecraft on your list. That
Yeah,
is definitely a game that can really, I don't know. Yeah, it looks beautiful.
sure.
I mean, it looks like whatever, blocky or whatever, but
It's beautiful in a way.
yeah, it is
Yeah,
definitely, absolutely.
yeah.
Um, my number 4 is probably what you would think of as a more traditionally beautiful game, graphics powerhouse, I guess. And there's only one of these on my list because I think chasing uh, chasing like the whatever looks, this is the most graphically impressive and like uh, limits pushing of hardware and technology. I think that kind of art style kind of dates itself, right? Because
Yeah.
inevitably, I mean, I think we're starting to push up against the wall of how realistically we can depict things.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not making as huge of leaps in hardware and in rendering capability as we once were, right? These are more baby steps as opposed to giant leaps, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, I think this type of art style kind of dates itself because, 5 years later, we're going to have better technology to produce better looking graphics. But my pick for this, the traditionally realistic, quote unquote, looking game, I'm going to go with The Witcher 3. Uh,
Okay.
it's a big open world fantasy landscape that um, just as you're moving through it, all of the, if you whatever crank all those sliders up, right, all of the grass will sway and the
Yeah.
branches and the trees will blow in and out, like in, like a gust of wind will come by, and it's just really like, wow, this looks crazy. um yeah, it's just a very visually striking game, which I'm sure will have better looking stuff in 5 to 10 years. But if I were to, right now, at this moment in time, pick a game that really illustrates how far we can push technology, probably The Witcher 3 would be my pick.
Yeah, that's a great pick. That game kind of reminds me of Red Dead Redemption 2 in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
attention to
definitely.
detail that they paid on stuff like that.
Yep.
That was which one? Number 4?
4.
4. Number 4 for me um, is a game that I've wanted you to play for a very long time, and you still haven't played.
Well,
Uh,
I'm a jerk.
yeah, you are a jerk. And I guess it's kind of along the same veins as what Witcher 3 is for you.
Uh-huh.
The game is The Last of Us.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I
Oh
talked
yeah. I
about
haven't played
this.
that.
Yeah, but I forgot when I talked about it. I think I had it in another top 5. But basically, the game is kind of a post-apocalyptic setting, which is, you would think, would be difficult to have a sense of beauty with, but they make an interesting decision with the level design, where you can see kind of like new growth coming out of old destruction, I guess. Like, there's like a building that's knocked over, and you can see most of like the building, but then on the ground, where the side of the building is now on ground, on the earth, like grass has taken over that area, and so there'll be like dirt and grass on the side of a building. Like, it's interesting, um, and of course, yeah, I mean, at the time that it was released, graphically, it was really impressive. The details of the character models and their clothing, and yeah, little blades of grass and all that stuff. But of course, and I think it's been remastered a couple times, so that probably still holds true. But that's not, to me, it's not just the graphics. It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. My number 3 is a Super Nintendo game. And this is a game I really have always loved the art style for. It was one of those games that was technically impressive back in the day, but I think this game still holds up from a graphics standpoint, just because not only was this game pushing the boundaries of what the Super Nintendo was capable of, but it was also doing it in a really just a really imaginative and unique art style. That's Donkey Kong Country 2 for the Super Nintendo. So if you've never seen what this game looks like, all of the backgrounds in this game are all pre-rendered. Like they're probably some sort of CG, but it's all pre-rendered. It's not it's not sprite based. And that's how the backgrounds work. Now there are sprites for the different characters and the enemies in the games, but those are also all of the animation in the sprites are also pre-rendered CG models. So they actually like modeled out all of these characters in like a 3D modeling program. This is a 2D game, by the way, but in a 3D modeling program, they modeled out all these like key poses and animations and whatever, and then just rendered out the 2D versions of these 3D models and posed them however they wanted for these different animations. The character models still look great. The backgrounds look awesome. But the thing that really pushes it over the edge is like how just wacky and imaginative they got with the art for this. So like you start out in like a pirate ship world. And by the way, the water still looks impressive to me on the Super Nintendo. The water effects in this game. And then you just go through these crazy things like I think I talked about this before in a previous episode, but you play levels where you're like in the clouds with all of these like sticker brushes, and then you play one where you're like on these like broken down roller coasters, and then you play ones where like you're in these like big metal fortresses, and I don't know, it's just the level designers and the artists definitely took a hit of acid before they started. It's just really, I don't know, it's just unreal and I don't know, imaginative. I like this game's art style very much. Donkey Kong Country 2.
Nice, good choice. Number 3.
Yeah.
Number 3 is Mass Effect for me.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, Mass Effect, a fantastic game by BioWare. But I think here's something I'm kind of curious about. Did Mass Effect 1 come out before or after J.J. Abrams became like a really popular director?
I was thinking in my head, that game just has bloom and lens flare and just bloom and more lens flare and bloom and lens flare. Like that's just the bloom and the lens flare is out of control on that game.
Right, which is kind of the iconic, criticism with J.J. Abrams, like how much he wants. We need more lens flare here, right? But it's a certain style that, if overdone, can be bad. But it kind of, I like it. I kind of like the whole space and the ship coming up and there's glare coming off of it from the. I don't know. It does it for me. Obviously, if it's a little too much, it's a little crazy. But it had a lot of that, and then it had a lot of just interesting things, because the game, I guess realistic is kind of a weird phrase for a science fiction, game with a bunch of aliens and stuff. I don't know. It just the design decision they made on a lot of like their level, like the backgrounds and everything like that. It just felt, I don't know, like believable and beautiful. In the what is the name of the tower or whatever, like the Citadel, right?
The Citadel, yeah.
That is just amazing. Like it's just so massive looking and full of life and beauty and of course space and stuff. It's hard to do it right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think of when I think of Mass Effect, is just lens flares and blooms. Just neon red and blue lens flares and blooms.
They had to have done it after like the Abrams like debut, right?
I don't know what that was like one of his early things. All right, here we go. J.J. Abrams, IMDb. All right. His debut thing was 2006's Mission Impossible 3. The thing he is probably most well known for is the 2009 Star Trek reboot. So
2009.
Mass Effect.
2007 is Mass Effect.
Whoa! J.J.
Wow.
Abrams is copying Mass Effect.
What?
Confirmed.
Yeah.
Confirmed. My number 2 is a game that came out last year, and it is Cuphead.
Oh.
Have you seen any
I've
of
seen
Cuphead?
I've seen a lot of footage of Cuphead. I've been meaning to try it. I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, all you need to do is watch 3 seconds of Cuphead in motion, and it is like an old 1920s, 1930s like Disney cartoon.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it looks like. And the reason it looks so good is everything in Cuphead is hand drawn, hand animated. Like all of the sprites are hand drawn. That's frame by frame. That's so crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah, because they wanted to emulate, the old 20s and 30s cartoons, and the way they emulated the way they emulated those cartoons is drawing everything by hand. Which is why that game took so long to come out. Yeah, but holy crap, that game looks insane. I love the way Cuphead looks. And that is an art style. I mean, I don't think that like really ever dates itself. I mean, of course it dates itself. Like, you know exactly where that's coming from. But I mean, like, it doesn't, like, you're not going to look at Cuphead in 30 years and be like, ooh,
it's outdated.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to look at Cuphead in 30 years and be like, oh yeah, that's like an old 1920s Disney cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, they have references to all sorts of I mean, not even specific references, but the characters just move the way that they're just overly animated, and I don't know, the game just looks incredible. So yeah, Cuphead looks awesome.
Yeah, agreed. Good choice. My number 2, I think you'll appreciate this one. I don't think I've ever played a game like this. The game is Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, wow, nice. Good pick.
Yeah. This game, I guess, originally was for PS2. It was interesting because there was like no NPC people in the game. There's no towns. It was almost beautiful in its nothingness. It was kind of open fields as you rode your horse and stuff. It had a certain tint to it that was kind of dark and like kind of grayscale in a way. But it was beautiful in terms of especially the colossi that you have to basically fight, for lack of a better word, that they're huge creatures, and you're like this tiny little dude and you're climbing them and trying to find their weak spots, and they feel like gods, they feel like these ancient beings, and they have unique designs on them, that are really kind of help the game mechanic of climbing them and stuff, but it also adds a sort of artistic beauty to these like giant characters, and they're like the only other living beings besides you and the horse that I remember. But I don't know, it had a certain beauty to the landscape and those few characters that I think is unrivaled.
Wow, yeah, that's definitely a super artsy game that I despise.
Oh, well, there you go.
I'm normally all the way. I'm all down for super artsy games, and I agree with you that game looks beautiful. I just I don't know. I just do not like that game. But I'm glad you do. I'm surprised. I'm a little bit surprised that you like Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite games, like game mechanic wise, but I definitely it made an impact on me in terms of.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. So my number 1, I thought long and hard about the prettiest looking game I've ever played. I don't... That is such a hard question because like games look crazy all the time. But I think like one of the last games I played, one of the more recent games I played that like struck me and was like, holy crap, this looks bonkers, was 2015's Ori and the Blind Forest. Did you get a chance to play Ori?
That doesn't ring a bell for me.
It is a Metroidvania style game where you play like this. I don't even know what Ori is. He's like a little monkey energy made of like light energy, I guess. Anyway, it's a Metroidvania that's has a lot of focus on platforming,
Mm-hmm.
but the game it just looks crazy. Uh, it's just got all of these like bright colors. Like you're for most of the game, you're in like a forest or a jungle area, and there's all these like I don't know. There's these just vibrant, glowing blues and greens, and it also uses like color really well because if I remember correctly, it was like red hurts you or something. So a lot of the like dangerous things will be colored red. So you just kind of intuitively know when you see something red, that's a dangerous thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was red. Maybe it was green. I don't know. It's been a few years since I played this game, but I remember they used color really, really well. The water physics in this game, I haven't seen water move this way before. It just looks like I mean, I know no game is actually doing this, but it looks like they've actually got like fluid modeling in the game. It looks crazy, and it's a game made by a really small team. This is an indie studio, Moon Studios, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they put out Ori and the Will of the Wisps, this year or last year? I haven't gotten to Will of the Wisps yet, but I'm assuming it looks just as insane as this game does. I mean, just look at a screenshot from this game. Like, just about anything you look at just looks crazy. Like, and I love that, like, the foreground objects look, I mean, they're, I don't know, more modeled or in focus, and then they kind of have like a depth of field effect. I don't think it's an actual depth of field effect, but everything in the background is kind of more muted or blurred. It just looks amazing. I love the way this game looks. That's Ori and the Blind Forest.
Cool. I took a slightly different philosophical approach for my number one.
Okay.
I think that the number one most beautiful game out there is a dynamic slot. I think it's ever changing.
Right. Okay.
Because a lot of it has to do with, it really does. A lot of it have to do with the graphics and what's technically possible in a game, I think. Or maybe just a design decision that no one else has tried before, but I do think this slot can easily be taken up within the next couple months when something else, comes out with an innovative approach. So that being said, I think the most recent one that's up there for me and is number one is Red Dead Redemption 2.
Ooh, nice.
There's just moments in this game and screenshots, I'm sure you can Google for them, that look straight out of a painting or something. It's just, or like photography. And you can tell they do it on purpose. There's like times it almost feels like there's times where if you're just loading up the game or there's a certain almost scripted event or location where they just pre-render things or something like even though you're playing the game, like I don't know, it's insane that you're actually playing the game and the game looks the way it looks sometimes, just when the right weather mechanics kind of interact. Lightning, have you seen lightning in that game? It's insane.
I've not seen lightning yet.
I rode through a thunderstorm and it was the most realistic looking lightning in I've ever seen, like in a game. It was just insane.
Damn.
Yeah.
I was super impressed, just even in the beginning, and the way the snow just forms to the way your characters and your horses are walking through the snow, and the way the snow falls. Like I feel like snow is a difficult thing to do correctly, but like this game absolutely looks and feels like you're walking in whatever 6, 8, 10 inches of snow. Like they nailed it.
Yeah, I mean like I remember that beginning sequence. It really felt like I was getting annoyed with the snow, just like I do in real life. It felt it was like you were going through the snow. So yeah. I mean, I think it's obviously my number one. I think part of that is just because of what's possible every so often. So I'll give it to Red Dead.
Nice. Those I'm glad that we had two totally different top fives. That's 10 different beautiful looking games you can go play right now.
Interesting.
So I am going to endorse okay, so today at the time of recording, Today, we just landed a robot on the surface of
Of
Mars.
Mars, yeah,
It was
yeah,
crazy. I watched
yeah.
the live stream today of how of when we landed this robot. And before the live stream, they were just interviewing different project leads at NASA and at I can't remember the specific name of the project. What is it? Insight, right? Is that what it
Sure.
is? I think it's Insight. They were interviewing different project leads there, and they were explaining all of uh, the different science. They were explaining like what the robot is going to be doing on Mars. They were explaining all of the different problems that they had to overcome in order to, land a robot on Mars. Like, just think about that for a second. Like, we just landed a robot on Mars, which I know is something that we as humans have done before. But just watching that live stream today, it was just super, super impressive to me. So I am going to endorse learning about space exploration and space science, because I really went down a rabbit hole today.
Did you?
Yeah, I mean, I was just so awestruck by this robot that we landed, because
Yeah.
I watched the whole live stream. I watched, it was very tense. They were showing
Oh yeah.
the Insight and the NASA control room as the robot was landing. The
Yeah.
robot's approaching the planet. The robot's going through the atmosphere. It's now we're inside the atmosphere, deploying the parachute, and each step along the way, everyone has like this nervous clapping, like, okay, we made it past that step. Oh, okay, we made it past that step.
It is really
And then-
nerve-wracking. Like space exploration on it, it's like it boggles my mind.
Yes, and that's exactly what I was trying to explain to, because I was telling my wife about how amazing this was. And like I don't know, like I took some science classes in college and high school, whatever. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of science in general, how things work. I can't even begin to wrap my mind around the fact that we took a robot and put it on the surface of Mars.
It's unbelievable sometimes. Yeah.
Crazy. It's crazy. My brain just can't process the science around how the hell we put a robot on Mars, because all these project leads were explaining all the complications about the Martian atmosphere, and you have to approach Mars at just the right angle, at just the right speed, because if you approach too shallow, you're going to bounce off the atmosphere. If you approach too steep, too much of an angle, then you're going to be going too fast. You'll burn up in the atmosphere, or you'll crash land on the planet. Like, the fact that we can land a robot on Mars, basically it's a science experiment that we can't even test until we do it, right? Like, there's no way to test that on Earth. Like, there's no, like, prototype Mars with a prototype Martian atmosphere and gravity that we can, like, let's test this a few times to make sure we get this right before we actually try it. No, you have to actually do it to see whether or not, like, that's so crazy.
And you can't even, you don't even, like, get the result that quickly. So you have to.
Exactly. Yeah, they were.
Years or whatever.
There was the super tense moments where they're trying to, let's make sure we get a signal from the thing. And it's actually, if you think about it, it's already happened, actually, because it's an 8-minute delay, I guess, between when the robot transmits a signal and when we receive it here on Earth.
Yeah.
So yeah,
which is that alone is crazy. We're sending a message from Mars to Earth.
Right? And that first, like, A-OK, like, all systems are functioning normally, like, the NASA control room just erupts, and everyone's high-fiving and cheering and hugging. Like, that was so cool to watch that. And then a few minutes later, like, it started transmitting, like, live picture, 8-minute delayed pictures of Mars, like, something you will never be able to see with your naked eye. It's just showing, here's some pictures of Mars. Like, that's so cool. That's awesome. So space exploration and space science is a cool thing to read about. You should go learn about it and read about it. It's cool.
Go read everything by Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes.
And then watch Apollo 13.
I have never seen Apollo 13, and I want to.
Dude, now that you have this bug, you should definitely watch that.
I should.
Everything you just described about the room erupting and the little tense moments and everything, it's all in that movie. Yeah. Like, have you seen the movie that's in theaters, I think still right now, with Ryan, not Ryan Reynolds, the other Ryan Gosling?
Which one is that?
It's about Armstrong and landing on the moon.
What?
It's in theaters right now.
It is?
Yeah. Hold on. Ryan Gosling. First Man.
Holy shit. I didn't even know that was a movie.
Yeah. So it was phenomenal. Like, Taryn was just like, I get it, space, whatever. But I was like, just the fact that they did this stuff is like so insane.
Crazy. That's insane. So crazy.
And I love... He was true to Armstrong, because Armstrong, after the fact, was very much like, I just did my job, like, whatever. Like, he was just like, know, it's crazy. I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy.
Very crazy.
Yeah, we can definitely go down a rabbit hole with that stuff, though. My endorsement is slightly less epic. It was Thanksgiving at the time of this recording. It was Thanksgiving last week on Thursday, and we record on Monday. However, I'm going to endorse, for any of you brave souls out there, to go ahead and have your Thanksgiving holiday with family before actual Thanksgiving.
Ooh, well, now what's the strategy? What's the strategy behind that?
Here's how it works. We live in North Carolina, and most of my family lives in Florida, which is where you're located, right, James? And we had some family come up the Sunday before Thanksgiving and stay until like Tuesday, basically. Or they came up that Saturday and then stayed up till Tuesday. So we decided, well, let's have our little Thanksgiving early on like Sunday afternoon. We kind of started like all our cooking and eating and all that stuff. So we had Thanksgiving 4 days before actual Thanksgiving. So when actual Thanksgiving came around, all we had to eat were leftovers, which is the best part of Thanksgiving.
I do like leftovers.
It's the best. We made a turkey pot pie with the leftover turkey. And then here's the best part. Family left the day before Thanksgiving, actual Thanksgiving.
Ooh.
So we spent our holiday off, just the two of us hanging out, eating leftovers.
That's nice. That's relaxing.
Yeah, family's gone. Yeah. You've got the leftovers, which is the best part. And you can just enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday and your shopping the next day without the stress of family or cooking. So
nice.
Highly recommend. Just, it's almost like early voting. Just kind of early Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Get it done early.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
We learned a little bit about the Wild West, beautiful games, space, and Thanksgiving.
That's quite a wide spectrum for this episode.
We do it all on the Good Games podcast, man.
Heck yeah, we do.
All right. Is that it for our show?
That's it. What's happening next week, next episode?
The next episode, are we still talking about the 2018 indie hit The Messenger?
Sure. Let's do it.
Are we still talking about that?
Let's go.
Okay. The Messenger is next on our slate. Go play some Messenger if you haven't already. It's a good game, and I'm going to give you a little sneak preview. It's a funny game. So I think our top 5 for next week is going to be our top 5 funniest games.
That's going to be an enjoyable experience.
So we'll see you next week for the Good Games podcast. I've been James.
And I'm Leo.
We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
See ya. Oh, I have a horse. So my wife's name is Taryn, and I have a horse that I thought was very beautiful, so I named it Taryn. But then later found out it had big, saggy horse balls.
Well, you're right.
So I ride my horse named Taryn, like my wife, and he's just like, "Good boy, Taryn." Like, oh, I messed that up.
I'm sorry your wife has saggy balls.
It's unfortunate.